Hey, I'm Olivia,
And hey, I'm Dad.
and you're listening to Soarin' Around WDW. Happy Wednesday, flight crew. We are back this week again with a new segment that we are starting to start out the new year. So, this year we wanted to start a section called Treasured Attractions, where we talk about the rides that we love or attractions that we love that are favorites on our list. And wanted to kind of go through our two top favorites first. So, I'm going to start off this week with Tower of Terror. And then the next time we do a treasured attraction segment, it will be Dad's favorite, which is Haunted Mansion. So the premise of this is you'll never forget your first ride, and some attractions really stay with you forever. This is Treasured Attractions, our chance to revisit the Disney rides that shaped our visits and sparked our love for the parks. We'll explore their history, how they've changed, and the memories that made them true favorites. So, kind of walking through the Tower of Terror, obviously, this is an extremely popular attraction still to this day. And as we talked about in our Parks of the Future episode, where I designed a Tower of Terror Tip Top Club, this attraction has a really big following and a very dedicated fan base that are, so to speak, diehard fans of this ride, the theming, the story. Everybody is really into it, especially kids who grew up in the park when it was first developed in the 90s and early 2000s, obviously. So, to run through it, wanted to talk a little bit about the development of the ride and its history. And so it's kind of starting back at the beginning after years of development engineering and even shifting the building's location because of a sinkhole. The Tower of Terror and brand new Sunset Boulevard officially opened on July 22nd, 1994. Now, to kind of give you guys a refresher, the park actually opened May 1st, 1989. So this was 5 years later. So just keeping that in mind for people that aren't familiar with that history that much. But this instantly became the park's signature attraction and remains one of the most iconic and richly themed rides that Disney has ever created. The origins of the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror go back to the mid 1980s when Imagineers were developing ideas actually for a different park, Epcot. One concept, the Great Movie Ride, impressed the new CEO Michael Eisner so much that he expanded the idea into an entirely new park dedicated to Hollywood and the entertainment industry. That park ended up becoming Disney's MGM Studios at the time, which again opened back in 1989. But in its early days, the park was small, rushed, and lacking a true e-ticket attraction to compete with the soon-to-be open Universal Studios Orlando. Disney needed something big, so Eisner, Mel Brooks, Marty Sklar, C. McNair Wilson, and a creative team of Imagineers met to brainstorm the park's first major expansion. Several early concepts were tossed around, including Castle Young Frankenstein and Mel Brooks's Hollywood Horror Hotel. Mel Brooks visited Imagineering several times, and the team explored ideas behind blending humor, horror, and a haunted hotel theme. At the same time, Imagineers began pulling inspiration from other abandoned projects, especially the free fall technology originally developed for the unbuilt Geyser Mountain and the early Discovery Mountain concepts for Disneyland Paris. So these concepts were really brought to other parks initially. And it's funny how they ended up kind of in this newly created park and not in either of those other parks at all. So Epcot and Disneyland Paris eventually in Disney Studios did get its own version of Tower of Terror, but it wouldn't be for a few more years after this. So when Brooks ultimately stepped away from the project, the Imagineers leaned harder into the eerie hotel idea. They envisioned a grand, decaying 1930s Hollywood hotel inspired by real Southern California landmarks like the Biltmore and the Mission Inn, architecture that would blend perfectly into the eclectic facades of Sunset Boulevard. But the attraction still needed a story. So Disney reviewed what film and television rights were available and found the perfect match, The Twilight Zone. Its anthology format, otherworldly tone, and iconic concept of entering the fifth dimension fit the hotel narrative beautifully. Disney licensed the Twilight Zone rights from CBS, combed through episodes for references, and crafted the story of a hotel lost in time. The team built an innovative new ride system with Otis Elevator Company that combined a moving elevator car with high-speed drop technology. In order to bring authenticity, they used archival footage of Rod Serling and cast voice actor Mark Silverman, chosen by Serling's widow, to deliver new narration that seamlessly blended with the original clips. Once Imagineering finalized the plans for Disney's new supernatural hotel, construction on the Tower of Terror began quickly. In early 1992, Disney's crew cleared the site on the far end of the future Sunset Boulevard. Partway through the process, however, workers discovered a sinkhole, forcing Imagineers to shift the structure slightly and rethink parts of the foundation. Even with that surprise setback, the massive project moved full steam ahead. The tower's design was unlike anything the resort had ever built before. Engineers had to account not only for its 199-foot height, the tallest attraction Walt Disney World could build without requiring aircraft warning lights, but for the intense forces created by its elevator system. The building needed to withstand enormous motors, high-speed vertical motion, and a ride vehicle that would move in and out of shafts. Construction crews worked around these challenges as Sunset Boulevard rose around the tower, designed to lead guests directly to its imposing facade. After 2 years of development and testing, the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror opened on July 22nd, 1994, debuting alongside the brand new Sunset Boulevard. On opening day, the attraction featured a single dramatic plunge, 13 stories at a speed of 39 miles per hour. The moment the riders entered the fifth dimension for the first time in 1994, the initial lights revealed what it looked like inside of the vertical elevator shaft, an illusion meant to disorient guests and set the stage for the drop to come. Guests and critics immediately loved it, which is to no surprise to anyone. The attraction quickly became the defining experience at MGM Studios, praised for its storytelling, immersion, and groundbreaking ride tech. Over the next decade, Imagineering enhanced the show several different times. In 1996, they added the double drop profile. In 1999, Fear Every Drop induced a triple drop sequence. And in 2002, the fourth enhancement transformed the experience into a randomized, computer-controlled free fall, ensuring no two rides were ever the same, which is what makes it so incredibly re-rideable today. You never know what's going to happen, if you're going to go up, down, how many times you'll go past those scary ghosts, will the doors open, all these different things. So that's one thing that I think makes this attraction so popular is just re-rideability, which is key for Disney attractions or attractions in general. Even though the Tower of Terror has remained remarkably true to its original design since 1994, the attraction has seen several notable updates and limited time overlays that add fresh layers of excitement to the experience. One of the biggest temporary enhancements came the summer of 2010, when Disney launched its seasonal entertainment event Summer Night-tastic. As part of the celebration, the tower received new lighting effects, a modified fifth dimension sequence, and even a brand new drop profile. The fifth dimension room was draped in black tarps dotted with fiber optic stars. Rod Serling's voiceover was removed from the lead in to the drop, and a projected photograph of guests appeared just before the plunge, echoing the effect used in the California and the Paris versions. The drop sequence itself was redesigned to use the full height of the tower more dramatically. These changes debuted in June and ran only until mid-August, but they left a big impression on fans who experienced this unique one summer only version. So, Dad, I want to pause here real quick. Do you remember the change from did you ever ride? Okay, let me start over. Did you ever experience the attraction with this change in summer 2010 where they kind of took the fifth dimension room and there were only, black tarps with the stars and they didn't have that voiceover. It was just kind of like this photograph of the guests that like it took your picture and it kind of appeared. Do you remember this? Did you ever experience this version?
That's a version I've never experienced. It sounds really cool, interesting, But no, that's not. I've been on it many times during that time, but I never did it. That must have been, I guess, like you said, a special event, right? At that point.
Yeah, it was very limited. So I guess it just ran from June until mid-August. And it's
Okay.
funny, I'll tell a story about this summer later, but I did experience this attraction. And I remember going on it, or this version of the attraction. I remember going on it and thinking, where did everything go in this room? And like, where's I don't know. There were different things that were very obvious that had been changed, but it was so short that then the next time I was back, it was gone and things were back to normal. So yeah, I do remember this version. There are some videos on YouTube of it. So if anybody is interested in checking out, just kind of looking up the Summer Nightastic Tower of Terror, and you can see some video footage of this. But yeah, it's definitely different. And more recently, the tower has taken on a role in Disney's holiday offerings. During Disney's Jollywood Nights, which debuted in 2023, the courtyard near the tower's exit transforms into the Twilight Soiree at the Tip Top Club, a stylish, vintage-inspired event that brings the hotel's jazz-age backstory to life with music, atmosphere, and glamorous nighttime vibes. We've talked about this a lot, especially in that Parks of the Future episode, where they're trying to incorporate this Tip Top Club type thing into the attraction. So I think that's super neat. The attraction has also evolved in quieter but meaningful ways. In its early years, riders at Disney-MGM Studios were secured by a single shared lap bar, a signature memory for many guests who found themselves sliding upward during the drops if someone taller sat behind them. In the early 2000s, the shared bar was replaced with individual seat belts, greatly improving safety and comfort while also enhancing the thrilling float of the sensation that riders love. Later built versions, such as Disney's California Adventure, the Tower of Terror that they had, opened with individual seatbelts from day one. And despite these updates, the core of the attraction has really remained unchanged since that opening summer. The lobby still sits frozen in 1939, the fifth dimension still beckons, and the elevator still hurdles guests into the unknown. So today, the Tower of Terror continues to be one of the most iconic and beloved attractions in Walt Disney World history. Now, the lap bar, I know, is something that you remember, Dad, from when we used to go on this.
Yes, I used to love the lap bar because you're right. If it didn't come down right to the top of your thighs, you would definitely catch some air, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I know when the first time, well, we'll talk about the first time you went on later, I guess, but I know when you were sitting next to me, obviously you were much smaller because you were just a young girl at that time. And I'm 6 foot. So that lap bar was probably a good 6 inches above your thighs.
Yeah.
So you would, anybody that was sitting in our area there that was smaller was going to go definitely get some air. You'd actually would fly right out of your seat a little bit, which I thought was kind of fun. I enjoyed that, and I've definitely sat next to I think your Uncle John, who's 6'7",
Oh, yeah.
and so that lap bar was not hitting my thighs, and I definitely got some air riding with him a few times. So I'm sure the whole seat that had that lap bar had a lot of fun that day. So yeah, I can see why they went to seatbelts. So because people are probably a little concerned or complaining about it because they maybe didn't think it was so safe. I don't know. I'm not sure, but that's probably why.
Yeah, it's interesting how much they've changed like different safety features on attractions because I also remember on Splash Mountain when they had no lap bar, no nothing, and you just kind of floated up in the log at the end of the drop, or you'd get a little bit of air there. And same with Big Thunder Mountain, they still only have a lap bar. So I feel like when the kids are with me on that, I kind of have to hold on tight to them because similarly, they just are flying up at every little dip. But yeah, the lap bar, if you guys remember the lap bar, definitely share your memories of that because I definitely remember that. Another thing I remembered about this attraction was in the old commercials for Disney's MGM Studios at the time. The commercial for Tower of Terror, they were standing and the elevator was just like an open elevator and they got in and they were all standing in it and it's like obviously a simulation, but of them dropping and screaming and holding on. So as we talk about my first ride later, I do remember in my head thinking that we would be standing because for whatever reason, do you remember that commercial, Dad, or like commercials like that that showed people standing?
I remember the commercial, but I also remember they had a Tower of Terror. I don't know how to really say it, like an advertisement or billboard
Oh yeah.
on the way right into Disney Park, right as you're heading toward Hollywood Studios, between kind of in the median, I guess, between the two highways, right? And it
Yep.
showed, it was kind of a thing that moved back and forth. It was showing the elevator, people standing in it, and it was falling. That's the impression they were giving. So yeah, between the commercial and that billboard, you would think you'd be standing when you got into it, which apparently never happened. So for obvious reasons, right?
Yes, exactly. And that billboard was always obviously one of my favorites. And I was kind of this like, okay, you've driven under the Disney sign, you've made it to the parks, but seeing that billboard was one of the landmarks that was always like, all right, we're here. It's a really cool and it yeah, moved and had different effects. And they actually demolished it in 2022. So it was up there quite a while. I'm trying to see if I can find the opening date, but yeah, they didn't demolish it until July, like mid-July of 2022. But I do really remember that billboard. Oh, it does say the iconic Tower of Terror billboard, part of the original marketing for Disney's Hollywood Studios attraction, was created around the ride's grand opening. So it appeared shortly after the attraction debuted. So cool. So it was there. Um,
Almost
pretty
30
early
years.
on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's a long time, but yeah, definitely one of my favorite billboards that Disney has. I don't know why they got rid of it. I really wish they would have kept that there, but I do remember that. So, how the attraction actually works. This is something that I think a lot of people don't fully recognize or understand just how complicated this attraction is. I think a lot of people just think that it's this free fall, but it's a lot more complicated than that. So, we're going to kind of get into it here a little bit. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror doesn't just tell a story, it engineers one. Behind the eerie atmosphere and the lightning flashed hallways is one of the most ambitious ride systems Walt Disney Imagineering has ever created. At the heart of the attraction is a two-part vehicle system. Guests will first board what looks like an ordinary hotel elevator, but it's actually what's called an AGV, an autonomous guided vehicle. Unlike a normal ride car, the AGV can move on its own without tracks, following a pre-programmed route and communicating wirelessly with the ride control system. This allows the elevator to do something no real elevator can, leave the shaft entirely. Once guests are seated, the AGV locks into a larger vertical system, lift system called the VVC or Vertical Vehicle Conveyance. Think of this as the true elevator, the machine that lifts the AGV up through the story sequences. Four of these show shafts sit at the back of the building, and after traveling up into the famous corridor scene, each shaft merges into one of the two identical fifth dimension rooms. This fifth dimension sequence is the illusion at the center of the experience. The elevator moves forward out of its lift, glides across the room under its own power. Beneath the floor is the guidance system that the AGV reads as it drives itself into the next elevator, which is the drop shaft. So it's really interesting to read about this because obviously they're starting to get more into these like trackless rides with the Rise of the Resistance ride, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure. Both of those are examples, but this is a very, very early concept of that trackless ride vehicle that was one of the first of its kind, which is super, super cool. But this is where Imagineering and the Otis Elevator Company truly went wild. The drop elevators are powered by two enormous motors at the top of the building. Each of the motors are 12 feet tall and weigh more than 130,000 pounds. These motors don't just let the car fall, they actually pull it down faster than gravity, creating that floating, weightless sensation the Imagineers wanted. The system can rocket the combined 10-ton vehicle up or down at speeds reaching 39 miles per hour, hitting forces between 1 and 2.5 Gs. It's far more dynamic than the traditional free fall type attraction that you might have experienced at your county fair or even over at Universal Studios with attractions like Doctor Doom that are more free fall, pull you up, free fall. This one actually pulls you down to go faster. So, to keep the experience fresh, the ride originally only had that single drop, but then when they added the double drop, people got super excited. So, they decided to go to the three drop before introducing that randomized drop sequences. And I do remember the shift from knowing you were going up and down 3 times to all of a sudden it was wacky and all over the place. 2003 was kind of our peak, early 2000s to 1999 to 2003 or 4 is when we were going all the time. We had our annual passes. So I do vividly remember, oh my gosh, this is different and this is a really cool change. And this is where their famous slogan, never the same fear twice, comes from. Each ride is selected by a computer moments before it actually begins. So guests really never know what is coming. And once the drop sequence ends, the elevator returns to the quote unquote basement. The AGV detaches, drives itself to the unload platform, and then back into one of the show shafts to pick up the next group. Every element of the structure, even the floors, was engineered to withstand the massive forces produced by the motors and the moving vehicles. And Disney's use of inductive charging, onboard computers, and AGV technology paved the way for future innovations, including rides like Tokyo Disneyland's Pooh's Honey Hunt. So while the Tower of Terror feels like a supernatural plunge into the fifth dimension, it really is a masterpiece of engineering, obviously, one that blends the robotics, elevator science, guided vehicles, and obviously a lot of storytelling magic. So, Dad, I know you've done a lot of research on this attraction and read a lot about it, watched a lot about it over the years. Do you have anything else to add about the way this attraction works or kind of your experience with this attraction and different things?
Yeah, I read early on about the motors, the size of the motors, and the fact that they pull them up, pull up the car really fast, but they pull it down. I thought was just super impressive. I guess this is what happens when you kind of let Disney Imagineers just say, okay, here's a blank slate, just do whatever you want, and we'll give you a really deep budget to handle it. Of course, they've done that probably not as much in the last 10, 15 years as I'd like to see, but you really let the Disney Imagineers go wild. This is the kind of thing you get, which is it's so impressive on so many levels. The theming is just to me, it just blows me away every time I walk through there. I love walking up to the Tower of Terror, through all the vegetation that's all dead. Everything's dead, right? I mean, this thing's like the hotel's been closed for years.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And there's so many things about the ride I like. I don't have to get into all that right at this point, but uh, yeah, I just I think the first time I did go on it probably was with you, your first time. I don't remember going on it before that. And that is probably right. Your brother Regan didn't want anything to do with it. Of course, your mom didn't want anything to do with it, and I don't think she still does to this day. But yeah, I just think it's so well engineered, it's so creative, and I hope that we see more of this kind of thing as time goes forward, and not always have it to be some uh, have it something related to some current movie that's out or something. I know they made a movie about this after the fact,
Yeah.
which is cool. I know that's one of your favorite movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love it when they let the Imagineers do their thing, and this is what you get. So
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's just such an interesting concept. And even though it is kind of based off of IP, it's not really because it's its own thing in a sense, because they took the idea of the Twilight Zone, but created their entire new story and
right,
really made it its own thing. And I think a lot of people might have never seen the Twilight Zone, especially people my age. I have seen it, but a lot of people haven't, and they associate the Twilight Zone with the Tower of Terror and this like super unique story. So yeah, I agree. It's really cool. I know I mentioned Tokyo Disneyland's Pooh's Honey Hunt, and it was funny. I was reading all about that when I was reading about this ride, and I guess it's because that's like one of the rides shortly after this. Well, not shortly after this, but it is one of the rides that opened in 2000 in Tokyo Disneyland, and it's a huge attraction that used this like trackless technology. So another really early use of this, not having it attached to a track or in like a boat ride where you're kind of following along the guided path. But rather very advanced for the time, considering that we didn't really get more trackless rides at our parks until Mickey and Minnie's Rise the Resistance and Ratatouille here just in the last 5 years or so. So it's super interesting to read about how advanced this one was for sure. And yeah, just the idea of them coming up with this to pull it down is fascinating. I also don't think I realized until I was doing research that you go 39 miles an hour. That's like wild to me. When I look at Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, the speed that goes is between 30 and 41. So you're basically going as fast as that attraction, which is super interesting. So some Easter eggs that are hidden throughout this attraction. I always love to kind of look for different things, and there's always things that, if you're standing in line for a long time or you just are really into looking for hidden things. Obviously, a lot of things at Disney, it's like hidden Mickeys and stuff like that. But this attraction has a lot of different things, including hidden Mickeys, different throughout the park. So the Florida attraction, the California attraction, and Disneyland Paris attraction. The hidden Mickeys, there's actually a Mickey plush in the pre-show, as well as Mickey pattern carpet corners in the library, and a piece of sheet music that is titled "What No Mickey Mouse? What Kind of Party Is This?" So just little nods that you can kind of find throughout the attraction. There is something called a passage for trumpet, which is a trumpet from one of the episodes that appears in one of the libraries, and the elevator inspection certificate that is signed by Mr. Cadwalder from Escape Clause. The last inspection date is listed as October 31st, 1939, which is the night that the lightning struck the hotel. The certificate number, things like this blow my mind, is 10259, which references the original air date of the show, The Twilight Zone, which was October 2nd, 1959. Just little things that I feel like most people would never even notice or think of. The Invaders is another little nod to the aliens that appear in the library displays, and a flying saucer hangs from the unload area ceiling. The season 5 window illusion, the corridor scene that you see when you're in that initial elevator shaft before you move your way into the drop shaft, there is a scene that's inspired by the revival of the Twilight Zone that happened in 1985, the opening of the show, where the window morphs into a star field, just like in the show, kind of morphs and then it breaks in the attraction. You keep going, to the next part of the show before you move your way through the corridor. There's also a quote that says, "Picture if you will," and that is a famous Rod Serling line that appears in the photo purchase area, which I think is super clever, obviously, picture and photo area. The promotional references, so early commercials featured an elevator needle pointing to the past the 12th floor to the 13th, kind of mirroring an unsettling floor indicator from the After Hours, which is another episode. Hollywood Studios specifically has something called the Mystic Seer Machine, which is from the episode Nick of Time, that's located high on the library shelves. To Serve Man was an episode, and there's a book from that episode that appears in both libraries. Little Lost Girl, another episode, is where there are chalk marks that appear on the walls heading from the unload, mimicking the portal search from that episode. In the episode The Fever, there's a slot machine that is tucked into one of the unload areas. Caesar the Dummy from Caesar and Me, who is present in the unload spaces, which this is one that a lot of people say is like the creepy ventriloquist doll that if you kind of land when you're unloading, he's not in, or he is in, I think he's in both spaces. So he's always the creepy doll that you see before you get out. Rod Serling and Victoria West envelopes that reference a World of His Own episode. Anthony Fremont poster, which is from It's a Good Life, that advertises his orchestra, which is humorously referencing the child with godlike powers from that episode. There's a photo play magazine that's open to an article featuring caricatures by Walt Disney, quote unquote. And in the lobby directory, fallen letters spell a warning that says, "Take the stairs," which is really cool and kind of eerie. In the California Adventure version of this attraction, some of the hidden things used to be the Room 22 door, which is a nod to the episode entitled 22. The Shirley Temple doll, which mirrored props from Walt Disney Studios Paris. The After Hours thimble, which was displayed in the library with a humorous sales tag. Rod Serling and Victoria West's letters as well were there, as same with the little Lost Girl chalk marks. And a unique one was a thing about machines display where a typewriter read, "Get out of here, Finchley," and an electric razor with a threatening caption. From the episode Long Distance Call, telephone was labeled perfect for those late night calls from grandma, and a stop at Willoughby, which was a faux Willoughby travel window at exit. The Anthony Fremont poster is one that matched the Florida lobby as well. So those were all in the attraction in DCA before it changed to Guardians, which we will get into here in a little bit. Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris, they have a few unique things as well, and this is the Talkie Tina or Sally Shine doll, which is a dusty doll in the lobby referencing either the Living Doll episode or from the movie 1997's Tower of Terror film. They also have Little Girl Lost chalk marks with the audio of the girl calling out. And in the exit display cases, they have posters that reference "I Sing the Body Electric" from Housemaid Wanted and "Time Enough at Last" from the Reading Glasses Wanted. The Invaders figures appear in both libraries, and the lobby directory misplaced letters spell "Come with me." In Tokyo Disney Seas, they play the Twilight Zone theme music in the outdoor queue, and the penthouse scene inspiration where the Starfield and Morphling are based on that same opening scene that we talked about from the revamped 1985 version. So lots of different little Easter eggs and things, especially for those people that did watch the Twilight Zone back in the day. They maybe recognize some of these things from those episodes. I love that the one in Paris has the nod to Sally Shine from the Tower of Terror film because I obviously love that movie. But Dad, did you know about any of these? I know you've definitely seen some of them when we've been in the line before.
Yeah, I'm always looking around. We go on some of these we've gone on some of these attractions so many times. You start looking for all kinds of things. Uh, that's just my personality. I've done that just on every attraction I've gone to with, at the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, Epcot, and so on. But one thing I thought was kind of interesting, you talk about Anthony Fremont, and that episode called "The Good Life" starred Billy Mooney from Lost in Space when he's the little red-haired boy in Lost in Space. For anybody that
Oh,
remembers that show from the 60s, it was a very popular show. I watched it. Me and my sisters, we loved Lost in Space. I think it was on for like 3 seasons. That was also CBS. He's the boy in there, and that's been voted one of the most popular out of all the series or all the episodes of Twilight Zone. Is A Good Life, and it's basically about a young boy, like 6 or 7 years old, that apparently if you got him upset, he'd banish you to the cornfield forever, or uh, he could turn you into a jack in the box, or all these crazy things, light you on fire. I mean, just all this crazy stuff.
that's so
And
funny.
yeah, so I just thought that was interesting that they would have nods to that because it clearly was the most one of the most popular episodes.
Yeah, that is funny. It's like different little things. I did not know that about Lost in Space, like that connection there. So that's super interesting. Okay, cool. Very cool. Okay, so because of time, I'm going to kind of just talk through the movie that came out in 1997, and then we will actually pause and we're going to turn this into a two-part episode. I think just because there's a lot to talk about, we still have to kind of go through the different things at the international parks as well as our takes on the attractions, some memories, and things like that. So, the Tower of Terror movie, for those of you who have not seen it, it was a 1997 made-for-TV supernatural film starring Steve Guttenberg and Kirsten Dunst, written and directed by DJ McHale, and loosely inspired by the Walt Disney World attraction, but not connected to the Twilight Zone. The movie aired on ABC's The Wonderful World of Disney on October 26th, 1997, and parts of the film were shot at the real Hollywood Tower Hotel in Hollywood Studios, with the rest of the film was obviously filmed on sound stages back in Los Angeles. And as of 2025, as of 2026, now that we are in 2026, The movie is not available on streaming or on broadcast television, which is such a bummer. That's one kind of bummer thing about ABC's Wonderful World of Disney movies, like My Date with the President's Daughter and Brigade and a few different ones that we love. They were technically the Wonderful World of Disney and not Disney Channel original movies. So Disney technically does not have the rights to them, and so they can't put them on Disney Plus or streaming. And so they are on no streaming service at all, which is a real disservice to the people. I really wish that this was available to stream. There might be some not so technical legal things on how to watch it via YouTube, but I actually, to no surprise of anyone here, own the DVD. So I still watch it on DVD every Halloween. And I remember the first time that I saw this movie. I was kind of surprised that I was allowed to watch it. Was that just more because it was a Disney movie? Because we weren't really into like, I'm not into creepy Halloween. This is about as creepy as it gets for me. So, what do you remember like this movie coming out and when I watched it?
I remember the movie coming out, and I remember you liking it a lot. I
Hmm.
honestly, I'm sure I watched it, but I don't. I probably watched it once. I don't have a real strong recollection of the movie, other than I know those both of those actors, of course, are very popular. Uh, yeah, I. So you're saying that we don't want you to watch it? Is that what
Or
you're saying?
no, I guess I'm just saying we didn't really watch creepy movies like that. Like we weren't really allowed to watch scary movies or like I don't know. It definitely had some like ghost and like spirits, obviously, elements that I don't know, like thinking about it now, I'm like, we watched nothing else like this. So I don't know if it was just because it was Disney that you guys gave it the thumbs up and said it was okay. I mean, it was pretty innocent. It's not, anything crazy, but it just surprised me. And now watching it as an adult, Eiley kind of asked if she could watch it. And I kind of said to Maddie, like, I don't, this might freak her out a little bit. So I haven't let her watch it yet. But it is a really good in a cheesy way movie. But yeah, so here the plot to kind of give everybody some background for those of you who have not seen it, highly recommend if you like Disney parks and like this attraction to watch it. But it is a movie about disgraced journalist Buzzy Crocker, who is played by Steve Guttenberg, and his niece Anna, Kirsten Dunst, as they investigate the haunted Hollywood Tower Hotel, where five people vanished in a lightning-struck elevator in 1939. A ghostly child star, Sally Shine, and her nanny, a witch who cast a curse, are among the trapped spirits, and Buzzy must help them find a book of spells and items belong to the victims to reverse the curse and free them. And it's kind of funny in this movie, like Steve Guttenberg is kind of this loser reporter who writes for like fake news and takes pictures for these, journals that are really dumb that I don't know, like what's one of them that they're called, Dad, where it's like fake news and they're in the grocery store. They used to be, what are those things
Just,
called?
just, just the tabloids that are out, you're
Yeah,
saying?
they're kind of like tabloids, or there's like a name for the ones that are like clearly fake, and it's like the dog is possessed or whatever, and it's like obviously not real.
I can't remember. I remember seeing those at the grocery store. I can't remember the names. There's a couple of them though that everything was fake in it for sure. You knew right off the bat by reading it. It
Yes.
was almost laughable. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So that's kind of the plot is that he used to work for this big newspaper and then he put out this story and then it got disbanded because it was a fake and he got outed and so he got fired and now works for these like phony newspaper like magazine type things making these phony stories and he comes upon this old lady who thinks like, "Oh, you believe in these spirits because you do these fake newspaper type things and I am somebody who stayed at the hotel and I was there the night that all these people disappeared." And so he goes with her and tries to figure out the mystery, basically. I think that's another reason why I really liked this movie because I was super into mystery, still am, love like mystery thriller type movies and books. So it was super interesting. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the movie. Again, it is not on streaming streaming or anything, but definitely worth a watch if you can find it somewhere on YouTube, which I know they have it. Or if you are like me and you're a true fan and own the DVD, let me know because I would be curious if anybody else does still at this point. Okay, so we are going to pause there. Let's do our Would You Rather for the week and kind of get into that before we wrap up the episode. So, our question for this week, that is a Tower of Terror themed question. Would you rather ride the Tower of Terror alone at night or ride it with strangers who scream loudly the whole time?
I would ride it, of course, all by myself and probably enjoy every minute of it. But to have someone sitting by me screaming the whole time, then I would have no interest in that.
Yeah, I agree. I would rather ride it alone. I think it would be a cool experience. Have you ever had like people next to you or like kids that are super scared or like screaming?
Oh, sure. And something I always like to do on the ride, and you can attest to this, I always put my arms up the whole time. I
Oh
don't grab
yeah.
onto one bar. You just got to go for it. So when they take your picture, everyone around you is like flipping out, and you're up there with your arms up. You've done it so many times. You know the drill, even though the sequence is different. I always thought it was fun just to put your arms up and not hang on at all, and that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, it is fun. I have some fun photo pass pictures from back in the day that I've had printed and different things on this attraction. I'll have to share in our throwback one of these episodes, one of these weeks. But okay, awesome. Well, that is it for this week. We will head back over into the Twilight Zone next time to bring out the rest of this attraction and kind of talk through again the international park versions and the original California version or Disney California Adventure version before it got changed over to its new theme, as well as our memories and different things from this ride. But thank you guys so much again for listening. And if you would like to be featured on the show with a Would You Rather, we would love to hear it. We're coming up onto the Haunted Mansion episode here in a couple of weeks as we go into Dad's Treasured Attractions. So if you have a Haunted Mansion themed Would You Rather, that would be awesome, or just any other one in general. We'd love to shout your page out. We tag people on Instagram. If you don't have Instagram, we'll still shout you out and give you credit for that Would You Rather. But thank you so much to everybody who has submitted. We still have a few that we are going to work through here over the next few weeks, and we hope that you guys have a great week. See you next week.
See you next week.
Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to give us a follow on Instagram at Soarin Around WDW Pod, where we share fun reels, throwback photos, and dive into weekly polls and debates. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow and hit that 5-star button. If you are over on YouTube, subscribe and leave us a comment as well. If you're listening on Apple, a 5-star rating and a written review would mean the world. You can also now support the show through our Patreon at patreon.com/Soarin Around WDW podcast by becoming a free or paid member and finding exclusive content and bonus episodes and videos there too. Thanks again for joining us. Catch you on the next flight.